Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay. I'm here with Uju, interviewing her for this talk, which is about being yourself in the current moment and how to build your own brand and write your own narrative. Uju is the Chief Strategy Officer at Platform Branding Company. She's a lawyer turned marketer who's now focused on developing and strategizing marketing solutions for Nigerian companies. She's also the book author of a new book called The Essential Guide to Personal Branding. She's a member of the African Women Entrepreneurship Cooperative and an alum of Stanford GSB Lead. She's received many awards, such as the WEF Women of Excellence Award at the Women Economic Forum held in India. She recently was appointed into the advisory board of FLLO Biz Support, a social enterprise that provides women, small, medium enterprises with finance and advisory services. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm so privileged to be here. What an awesome introduction. Thank you.
We're super excited to have you. So just kind of starting out with your background a little bit, you transitioned from the field of law into the field of marketing. You now have a leadership position in strategy and marketing strategy. You've become an entrepreneur. What was kind of the aha moment in your professional career that made you take that leap into entrepreneurship?
Oh, well, that's an awesome question. So I'm going to tell you a bit about myself because I'm the first of 6 children. And I was born into an entrepreneurial family. So my father is a serial entrepreneur. And when we were growing up, which was in the 70s in Nigeria, he ran a shoe factory. So he's from the southeast of Nigeria, which is really well known for being running the largest incubation in the world, really. It's like an entrepreneurship incubation that is recognized worldwide. And so that's the background that he came from. So as kids, we were all his apprentices. You know, he would use us for free labor. You know, we would go into the factories and he would send me out to shops and supermarkets to get the goods in there. In fact, sometimes when I was going back to school, he would send me with the goods and say, look, Uju, we don't have money. Go with these shoes and sell them, and that's your pocket money. You know, so that's the kind of family I grew up in. And he actually was one of the first 3 people in Nigeria to start this factory. He was able to hire some Italian and Spanish designers who came and lived in Nigeria. So that's the background that I grew up with. There was no task that he felt was too much. He put so much faith in me. So he would give me all kinds of tasks and I'll do them. And it was normal for me. So when I went into university, that's the background that I went with. I was always I had stuff to sell. I was marketing and all that. When I finished my law degree, my mom is a lawyer. I worked in law for a while and I realized that it wasn't I liked quick results. I wanted to see the value that I was bringing to the table. And in Nigeria, cases would go on for years and years. And so I veered into the banking industry. And while I was in the banking industry, I put my everything into it. I had how many hour work weeks? Because there was we would wake up at 5 a.m., would close at midnight. You know, in fact, the Nigerian banks, when they leave Nigeria and they go to other African countries, you know, we have to dial back because the pushback is serious. But in Nigeria, this is what we're used to. We woke up at as early as 5 a.m. We would close at midnight. Weekends were spent doing retreats and, you know, brainstorming how to move the bank forward and all that. So that's the kind of background that I have. But when I was pregnant for my 3rd child, I had a stillbirth, you know. And I was really putting so much into work, you know, no weekends. I hardly saw my husband, I hardly saw my kids. And they just kept asking for more. Would you know, you can do it. We'll send you to whatever, executive education abroad and everything. And, you know, it just continued like that. So when I had my 3rd pregnancy, I had a stillbirth. I said to myself, this can't continue. It's time to look after my health because I really wasn't prioritizing my health. I was still there until I now got pregnant for another child. And that's when I quit. And then my sister studied advertising in the US, and she was like, Uju, let's do this thing. There's a gap in the market. There are not enough agencies that kind of cater to the medium to large businesses, you know, and so that's what we did. I said, look, I'll write my own ticket. This will offer a chance for me to even employ people, you know, do the work that I love as well, because like I said, I'd been marketing since I was in diapers almost. So that's the aha moment. It was that I had to prioritize family and my health.
That's an amazing story. And it's great that you found something that you can have more of a work-life balance doing while still really loving what you do. It's really important. The next question I have is kind of perhaps some advice that you have to people. The job market right now is really competitive with everything that's going on in the world. And people are looking for really new and innovative ways to present themselves to future employers. So what advice would you give to people who are looking to get started in professional branding and differentiate themselves in a really competitive job market?
Awesome. So I would, let me start with a story about my own sister she was a top recruiter for many years, you know, and what I found was that a lot of recruitment, and even research has shown that almost 50% is through social networks. So, you know, you might be out there just putting out your CVs and things like that, but research has shown that 50% of jobs are actually filled through social networks. And so, but what do we do? You know, normally we kind of hang around with the same people. You know, we're not expanding our networks. And another thing is that another study showed that there's the strength of weak ties. So when you're, you know, looking for work, you need to expand, because if you keep networking with the people you know, it's kind of redundant, because the people you know will know the same kind of people. So you need to kind of extend your reach and do some more strategic networking. What are the goals that you have? What kind of job are you looking for? Which companies do you want to work with? So find the target people who need to know about your work. You need to be memorable. You need to differentiate yourself. When you build that personal brand, I write about it in my book, how you can stand out. You need to be memorable. If people don't remember you, how are they going to put you forward for, you know, for work? When you build that standout brand, what's going to happen is that, number one is, even if you lose your job, you're going to be picked up almost immediately, because people are looking for people like you know. So you have to do some strategic networking. You have to know your brand. You have to differentiate your brand. And, you know, by so doing, then you become attractive to, you know, recruiters and people who kind of want to fill that position with someone who's bringing something different to the table.
Totally. Super important to just differentiate yourself and make sure that people know who you are and what your brand is. Going back to what you were talking about earlier about kind of going from like a corporate job to entrepreneurship, even though you had kind of those entrepreneurship roots, do you think that there was anything that you wish you knew going into starting your own company as advice that you could give to people looking to do the same?
Awesome. Yes. So it's very funny, because we started a branding and marketing agency, but we didn't take our own advice. So when we started, it was an all boys club. It was lots of, you know, the deals were really made outside of work, and then they'll come back and kind of ratify it. So we try to be anonymous. We didn't want people to know that, look, this was the first, like, two sisters who were founding an agency in Nigeria. And so we tried to do a little bit of anonymity, you know, and just let the work speak for itself. And this really backfired, because in the end, we couldn't stand out, and we were kind of losing market. In the beginning, it was easy, because I could just tap into the people who I knew in the bank, but soon more and more people came into the industry. In fact, I was listening to a YouTube video, Robert Smith, who was the chairman of Vista Capital. And he said how when he started his business, he was thinking, look, I'm an engineer. All I need is money. I know this thing will work. He left Goldman Sachs, and he wanted to start his own company. And when he went to Asia or the Middle East trying to raise money, he could see the treatment wasn't, you know, Sometimes to keep him waiting and stuff like that. And someone said to him, look, it's not that we don't know who you are or anything, but you have to build your brand, really. You need to be more visible and everything. And so he now realized that he had to lose his anonymity and then, become that visible by coming out by, the content and the plan that he made to be more visible. And that changed everything for him. So I would say to anyone who's trying to start a business, you have to build your personal brand deliberately and your business brand, because that's how people connect with you. You're trying to sell something, right? And when you build your business brand, you build a brand that can connect with consumers. And then you have to be the face of your brand. So no anonymity, you have to be visible, and you have to differentiate yourself by distilling what makes you different and communicating that effectively, across all your touch points. So that would be my number one advice to anyone, is to build a profitable and standout brand.
Definitely. Do you think that since you and your sister were two women founders and entrepreneurs, did you face a lot of challenges starting your own business? Or do you think really when you leaned into being sisters, starting this business, that's when it all started to click?
We face a lot of challenges. If you work in Africa, you'll know there's some challenges that you would typically face, that women face. For example, lack of networking opportunities. When we started, there were very few female associations and things like that. Lack of capital. They would give a man before they give women. The stereotypes about women in business, or women, there's hobbies, while men are more serious. And so there were so many things the hurdles that we kind of faced. And like I said, the way we started was to kind of let think our work was good enough to just speak for itself. But then we realized that no, we also had to take the pill that we were kind of prescribing to others. And that's when, we started to see a change and a turnaround.
Totally. Kind of talking about working in Africa as well and building your business there. Do you think that storytelling for a company or for an individual is different country by country, and people have to take in the context into consideration?
Well, all great stories are universal. When we were growing up, my father also worked in the library before he started the shoe factory. And so his favorite thing was to dump us in the library, abandon us there for, weekends. And, I used to read Sherlock Holmes and, so many stories. We would consume Hollywood movies. And so stories are kind of universal: greed and love and romance. And, all these things are not things that are kind of country specific, but you have to be careful when you're trying to tell a story. But if you tell a good story, research has shown that story kind of leads to a connection with your audience, and it makes them feel good, so they release oxytocin, and that also helps you. They will do business with you if they know, like, and trust you. And brains are hardwired to retain stories. Professor Jennifer Archer at the Stanford GSB lead would say, stories sell. Stories are the way we retain information. But people try and do a lot of data with stories. And so it's a universal language. It's as old as time. If you tell a good story, you're able to motivate your audience. And once you get that emotional connection, they'll do business with you.
Definitely. I think that there's so much to be learned from just the popularity of things like Sherlock Holmes and all of those movies internationally, that just tug at something in our hearts. And the same can be true of brands telling their stories, or people telling their stories. The last question I have here to kind of close it out a bit is that the current moment that we're in right now is not only shaped by a global pandemic, but also a reckoning as a lot of countries come to terms with just inherent inequality in the organizations and systems, whether that's racial bias or sexism. What do you think are some key drivers to overcome bias in organizations and kind of help us make our way towards equality?
That's a great question. So bias exists, right? Blacks are treated differently. Women are treated differently. I mean, the research has shown that women, were typically underfunded, were underrepresented in boards, and so even people of color, Black people, they face similar stereotypes. People believe that they kind of use all these unconscious bias to kind of exclude people, so Black people may not have as many opportunities as a white person. So these studies have already been done. So we know that this problem exists, but how do we change it? Number one is we know that one of the principles of influence is, people who are similar. People like people who are similar to them, right? So you have to know this. It means that even from the way people are hired, like I said, it's your networks, and who's going to be your network. If you went to a predominantly white school, you're going to know white people, and then you'll end up hiring more white people and all that. So first of all, when you know that exists, that look, the tendency is to hire people who are similar to you, that means you need to go out of your way. I took design thinking during my lead program, and one of the things they talk about design thinking is that it's an innovative way of solving a problem in a new way. And so I think even design thinking can help in unconscious bias or training, because people need to be put in the user's shoes. How does it feel? So, for example, research has shown that if people play behind the curtain, they hire more women to orchestras. But before that, they would hire less women. So it means that things like we need to be more innovative in the ways that we hire people. Maybe no names on CVs, or just make a conscious effort, because look, when societies are more equal, it benefits everyone. Women on boards is better for business. It has been proven. And so diversity also improves, the bottom line, because imagine that you have customers and you're not able to. That's why some advertising campaigns are pulled when people say, look, that's offensive. But if you don't have anybody that can tell you why it's offensive, you'll keep doing these mistakes. Consumers can demand change, just the way we do with eco-friendly products. We want to work with people who share some of our values. So consumers can demand change as well. The last thing I want to say is, it's not like, when you think about implicit or unconscious bias, right? You have to know that it's not that people kind of blame you. It's not that, so this is how you grew up. You went on all white college. You went, and you like people who are similar to you. How do you make other candidates like you? How can you bring in people? Because when you get to know people, that's when you'll stop having that feeling or notion. That's when you begin to ask yourself, these things that I feel, are they true? Can they pass the test? Like you see a name like my name, Uju Obuekwe, and you're thinking, can I hire her and stuff like that. So you have to be aware of how you think. And then you need to think also, how else am I going to get to know someone? So programs like, at Stanford, where a lot of people are also foreigners, so you get to know people. You'll find out that there'll probably be less bias, because it's kind of diversity and inclusion are part of the, the ethos or something. So organizations need to remember that, it's not going to happen by itself. They have to do some training. They have to use, design thinking to figure out how to work in the, walk in the shoes of other people, of people of color who say, look, we're being discriminated against, and then training, so you have to be proactive about it. And like I said, consumers also should demand change. You need to know the companies you give your money to, how many Black people are they hiring? How many women are they hiring in the top positions and everything? And what are they doing to kind of get that pipeline of people into the system?
That was a wonderful response. Yeah, completely agree with you on all fronts there. Is there any kind of last things you'd want to say about your book? Last pieces of advice for anybody listening who wants to do what you did and break out of their career, start their own thing and find success there?
I would say that, look, in my book, I outline 4 ways to monetize your expertise. Number 1 is your character. You have to craft your own brand. You have to ask yourself questions. What are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats and stuff like that? What are your values? What's your passion? Like Dr. Wayne Dyer says, you know, a person without passion is like a balloon without air. You have to be deliberate about the content that you put out, because by the content, people will know, you know, whether you're an authority. You know, you need to be credible. And how do you establish credibility? You can work with, you know, some kind of publications, or, you know, because if people feel that you're working with like a high profile publication, it's like you're being pre-vetted. And so you can borrow credibility of others. And then the last one is your connections. Who do you connect with? Who's in your network? It's been said that, you know, your network will determine your net worth, you know, so people who are going to put you forward, people are going to kind of let you know what's going on and all that. So you have to be strategic about that. And if you do that, you can reinvent yourself. You can move from one career to the other, you know, just by following some of these 4 steps.
That's amazing. Well, Uju, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with us. And I hope everybody watching enjoyed this talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay, for having me.
Of course.
And thank you, Amin, and the Silicon Valley Design Thinking Club.